Not just counting reps, using HRV, sleep and data to train smarter. She stood in front of the mirror again, gym bag packed, coffee still warm in her hand. But something felt off. Not the usual tired, something deeper. Like her body was asking a question she didn't know how to answer. She'd been training 4 times a week for months, eating clean, tracking macros, doing everything right, or so she thought. But her progress had flatlined. Worse, she felt weaker, more irritable, and sleep, once her sanctuary, had become restless and thin. Part of her wondered if she was just getting older. Maybe this was normal. Maybe she'd hit her limit. But another part, the part that still laced up every morning, knew something else was going on. She just didn't know where to look. Most of us treat training like a transaction. We show up, we push hard, we expect results. And when they don't come, we push harder. We count reps, we chase PRs, we measure progress in sweat and soreness. But what if the problem isn't effort, it's information? What if your body's been sending you signals all along and you've just been too loud to hear them? That's where her story took a turn. One morning, after another rough night, she stumbled across a podcast about something called heart rate variability, HRV for short. At first it sounded too technical, too niche, something only elite athletes or biohackers cared about. But the more she listened, the more it clicked. HRV measures the variation in time between your heartbeats. It sounds simple, but it's actually one of the most sensitive markers of how your nervous system is handling stress. High HRV usually means your body is recovered, resilient, ready to adapt. Low HRV, that's your body waving a red flag. It means stress, physical, mental, emotional, is outpacing recovery. And here's the thing, you can't fake it. You can't trick it with motivation or caffeine or willpower. Your heart doesn't lie. She downloaded an app that night. Nothing fancy, just a basic HRV tracker that worked with her phone camera. The next morning, she took her first reading. 60 seconds, fingertip on the lens, breathing steady. The number came back lower than the app's baseline for her age and fitness level. She stared at it, then laughed, not out of joy but recognition. Her body had been trying to tell her for weeks. She just hadn't been listening. That same day, she skipped her planned high-intensity session, not out of laziness, out of respect. Instead, she went for a walk, stretched, foam rolled, let her nervous system breathe. It felt strange at first, like she was wasting time, like she was falling behind. But by the end of the week, something shifted. Her HRV started climbing, her sleep deepened, and when she returned to her normal routine, she felt different, stronger, clearer, more present. Researchers at Stanford found something similar in a study on overtraining and recovery. When athletes were guided by HRV data instead of rigid schedules, they not only avoided burnout, they actually improved faster. Because adaptation doesn't happen in the gym, it happens in recovery. And recovery only happens when your nervous system feels safe enough to rebuild. But HRV was just the beginning. Once she started paying attention to one signal, others became impossible to ignore. Sleep was the next piece of the puzzle. She'd always known sleep was important. Everyone does. But she treated it like a luxury, something she'd get around to once life calmed down. Spoiler, life never calmed down, so she started tracking it. Not obsessively, just honestly. How many hours? How many cycles? How much deep sleep versus REM? What she found shocked her. On nights she got less than 7 hours, her HRV tanked the next morning. Her workouts felt harder, her mood was shorter, her cravings spiked. On nights she prioritized rest, even if it meant skipping a late-night scroll or saying no to one more episode. Everything improved. Her body wasn't broken, it was just exhausted. And once she gave it permission to rest, it rewarded her with progress she'd been chasing for months. But here's where it gets interesting. She started noticing patterns, threads that connected sleep, stress, training, and recovery in ways she'd never considered. For example, on weeks where she slept well but felt emotionally drained, work stress, family tension, life stuff, her HRV still dropped. Her body didn't care if the stress came from a barbell or a boardroom. Stress was stress. And if she ignored it, her performance paid the price. So she adjusted, not by doing less, but by training smarter. On high-stress weeks, she dialed back volume, focused on mobility, prioritized sleep and walks over heavy lifts. On low-stress weeks, when her HRV was high and her energy felt abundant, she pushed harder, tested limits, chased intensity. She stopped following a plan. She started following her body, and that's when everything changed. What surprised me most wasn't just how a simple HRV monitor improved my experience with recovery and training adaptation, but how everything started to feel different once I switched to the right method. I wasn't expecting such a clear change, and honestly, I tested it more than a few times before I figured out what really worked. This isn't a promotion, just sharing real results that made a noticeable difference for me. I'll leave the link below if you want to explore what I mean. But back to the bigger picture, because this isn't just about one device or one metric, it's about a shift in mindset. For years, we've been told that discipline means showing up no matter what. That consistency means ignoring how you feel and doing the work anyway. And sure, there's truth in that. Motivation fades, discipline endures. But discipline without awareness is just stubbornness, and stubbornness over time leads to injury, burnout, and frustration. Real discipline is knowing when to push and when to pause. It's listening to your body not as an excuse but as feedback. It's understanding that progress isn't linear, that recovery is part of the process, that rest is not weakness. She realized that somewhere between the failures and the quiet mornings, she'd found something more valuable than a six-pack or a deadlift PR. She'd found rhythm, and with it, peace. Her training became less about proving something and more about honoring something, less about forcing results and more about creating conditions for growth. And ironically, that's when the results started coming. Her lifts went up, her energy stabilized, her mood improved, her sleep deepened. Not because she trained harder, but because she trained smarter. Because she stopped ignoring the signals her body had been sending all along. There's a concept in exercise science called the minimal effective dose. It's the smallest amount of stimulus needed to trigger adaptation, without overshooting into fatigue or injury. Most of us overshoot. We think more is better, more volume, more intensity, more sessions. But the body doesn't care about more. It cares about enough. And enough is different every single day. That's where data becomes powerful. Not as a replacement for intuition, but as a guide, a flashlight in the dark. HRV tells you how recovered you are. Sleep data shows you how restorative your rest actually is. Resting heart rate, glucose levels, even subjective mood scores, they all add up to a picture. And when you start paying attention to the picture, you stop guessing. You stop blaming genetics or age or bad luck. You start making informed decisions. And informed decisions, over time, compound into real transformation. But here's the part no one talks about. Data can also become a trap. She learned this the hard way. For a few weeks, she became obsessed, checking her HRV every morning, stressing if it was low, celebrating if it was high. She forgot that the point wasn't the number, it was the pattern. One low reading doesn't mean you're broken. One high reading doesn't mean you're invincible. It's the trend over time that matters, the relationship between your choices and your recovery. So she softened her grip, started checking in a few times a week instead of every day, used the data as guidance, not gospel. And that balance between awareness and obsession became its own kind of wisdom. She thought about all the years she'd wasted chasing someone else's plan, someone else's schedule, someone else's idea of what progress should look like. And she realized no one else lives in her body. No one else feels her fatigue. No one else knows what her nervous system needs on a Tuesday morning in October. Only she does. And now she had the tools to listen. So what does this look like in practice? It's simpler than you think. You wake up, you check in. Maybe you track HRV, maybe you just notice how you feel. Energized, foggy, sore, calm. You look at your sleep. Was it deep, restless, interrupted? You consider your week, stressful, easy, emotional, stable. And then you adjust. If everything's green, you're recovered, rested, ready. You train with intent. You challenge yourself. You explore your limits. If something's off, low HRV, poor sleep, high stress, you scale back. You focus on movement, not intensity. You prioritize recovery over performance. You trust the process. You trust your body. You trust that rest is not retreat, it's preparation. And over weeks and months you start to see it. Not just in your lifts or your physique, but in your energy, your mood, your resilience. You stop feeling like you're fighting yourself, and you start feeling like you're working with yourself. That's the shift. She looked in the mirror again, not with judgment but with curiosity. What she saw wasn't perfection, it was progress, the kind you can't measure with a scale or a stopwatch, the kind that shows up in how you carry yourself, how you recover from hard days, how you show up for the people you love. Strength isn't just what you lift, it's what you listen to. And the strongest thing she ever did wasn't another rep. It was learning when to stop. This isn't medical advice, it's not a formula. It's just one person's story. And an invitation to write your own. To stop treating your body like a machine and start treating it like a partner. To use data not as a crutch but as a conversation. To train not just with effort, but with intelligence. Because the goal isn't to do more, it's to do better. And better starts with listening. Tell us what part of this story resonated most and where you're watching from. See you in the next video. Bye.